Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I just want to pause for a moment on this first screen, and I want you all to think about a time when you've been in an experience like this, when you've been by the sea, maybe on a bench, taking a breath, and just feel that for a moment, because it's important for the rest of the presentation. Okay, so let's move on. A little bit about myself. Thank you for the welcome. I am Group Director of Experience Strategy at Digitas Health in London. I know I sound American, but I've been in the UK for 30 years. I don't know why I haven't lost my accent, but it's just one of those things, I guess. I'm a Director of Experience Strategy. What does that mean? It means that I feel like a designer at heart. I follow methods that are centered around design thinking. But I'm also very data-driven, which is kind of unusual for a designer in the sense I've done a lot of analytics, and in my last role, I treat it a little bit like a sabbatical, or that's the way I talk about it. I learned a lot about data science. As a teen, I was very interested in natural language processing, but the field was in its infancy at the time. Nothing was very interesting, and so I moved into other things. But I'm so excited. The advent of the large language models have given me a real inspiration to start designing with them. So my work at Publicis, it spans all types of XR. Just 3 examples here from our sister agencies. The first one is from Publicis Health, what I'm part of, Digitas Health is part of. This is for Haleon. They are the consumer arm that GSK used to have, and they sold it off to now, and they're rebranded as Haleon. And so this was an ideation session, inspiration session with the internal teams to try and understand what the opportunities could be around a virtual campus. For Invisalign, I work on this account. We designed an experience for kids. So this was in Livetopia and Roblox. And the last one there is Deutsche Telekom. That's sort of reinventing how a brand shows up in the world using emerging technologies like AR. That's Meta Design in Germany. So today I'm going to talk about 5 things that are important to focus on when you are designing an XR product, including conversational AI. So the first one is around shifting perceptions with the right story. The second is conducting the right research. The third is designing your AI character iteratively. And some of the tools we've just heard about in the previous talk are the ones I've been in the weeds with. So I'm going to tell you about my experiences with that. The fourth is about creating strategies for sustaining context over time. And the last is some of the regulatory issues. So let's dive in with perceptions and the right story. So I wear a brand strategy hat in my day job, if you will. And it's very important to make sure that you're showing up. We've talked a lot about use cases. Ori was saying we've got use cases. And certainly the outlook does look promising for our industry. If you look at the predictions there on the uptake, we've done a lot of work on access. You know, I've got the Quest 3 there, but it's not just them. We've got it out in the mainstream, and art. Certainly, this is Anna Dreambrush. She performed at the Louvre. I can't think of another example that would more represent the mainstream, recognizing the opportunities of virtual reality. But this is on the barrier side. We're really held back by some perceptions, and I've just conducted some research that I'm going to tell you about my experiences on. And some of the things that have come up have been that we're a technology in search of a problem. These are the things that we hear. AI is a sort of dehumanizing force, and there are many facets to this. It's high costs, there's still people grappling with the fact that you can have one headset maybe, but what about the rest of the family? It's quite isolating. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading this a little bit. The emotional responses to images of the headset, we struggle with that. And lastly, anxiety coming out of COVID still. So if we think about the perceptions that we are sort of exposed to as we are trying to design these things, we get views from parents around the one that I just mentioned, but also around children and the issues around safety and being concerned about not being able to monitor it adequately. So then on the other side, we have marketers saying, the metaverse needs marketers more than marketers need the metaverse, for example. These are the things that I heard at a House of Commons talk. We've got sorry, I'm really struggling to read this. Artists, of course. And the last one is around gamers. You know, we thought our friends would be the gamers, but they say, well, actually, I don't really want to wear something on my face all the time. Or I want to relax when I'm playing games. I don't really want to be, you know, up there and being active all the time. So there's a little bit of disconnect there. But how do we get out of that? And I'm going to tell you how we've managed to get out of it. Starting with the why, this is Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, and this helps us to position the value of what we're doing in a way that makes it resonates with people and it builds a sense of, yes, I understand and I buy into what you're doing. That's just, it's a big topic in itself, so I would urge you to take a look at it if you're not familiar with it, but I want to get into the work that we've been doing, the work that's really, it feels like at the coalface of what's next. And there's a problem that we have centered our work around, one that we identified, and this is around older people and loneliness. We've all had the stories of parents or friends who do not have a support system around them, and they're struggling to use technology. We're hearing about the fact that everything's going online, and they're not able to use the new systems. They have to rely on their family. But ultimately, these kind of technologies do allow the older people to share and be able to see people remotely, but we can't help them because they can't use them. And so what we've been doing is we've been saying, well, look, there are examples in the literature. VR has been vastly studied in therapeutic ways and certainly with seniors, etc. And there are good examples. So we've been able to come to the table saying, look, there are things that we know work. The studies support this. And we've been able to also give examples. So here is Horizon Worlds. There's a senior community on there where they go in and they have book club, they play games, etc. And these are the examples that we've been able to bring to people when they start giving us the barriers and saying, but actually, no, they say old people don't want to put on headsets, but actually some of them do, you know, and you can prove this to them. So what you do then is you explain why your product answers their needs. And I'm going to show you the first little glimpse of our project. Here, one of the things that I really wanted to convey was this aspect of a beautiful place that you might want to sit as if you would on a bench. And so some of the beautiful scenery is very important to that experience. That's only part of it, though. The other part is about having the AI character to help with loneliness, and it's not just companionship, it's also being able to help with being able to access things. For example, a video or to find out facts. Maybe some of the questions that we've had in our research have been very wide, you know, something like, how many varieties of potato are there? So if you form your story based on a problem, how do you then show up? What are your hypotheses to solve that problem? Why does it matter? Then what you would do is follow a design thinking approach in your storytelling and say, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do research, I'm going to understand the needs, and that includes the negatives as well as the positives in the empathize stage. And then you move on to the design stage. And then you're going to be testing it, you're going to be prototyping it, and then the magic testing it is in the iterative nature of design thinking, you're going to be going around and around. So you frame your story of the development of your product around this process. So now let's dig in a little bit to the right research. So why do you do research? Because you want to understand what are the priorities, what are the things that matter most. You can't build everything. The reason why the UX discipline was created, if you will, is because technical people thought, let's put everything in. And UX people showed up and said, well, actually, everything doesn't add value. Let's focus on the things that make a difference to the experience. And the other thing is about understanding what to build. You know, what can we put in this MVP, the minimum viable product for our first release, that will make sure that it's successful? We'll get the early usage that will make sure that we'll be able to have a platform then to develop on. So what we did is we conducted a study with older people, 60 plus. We went out to 13 people, qualitative, And we asked, it's formative research because we thought we're not really sure what the opportunities are here. And we asked them open questions about the kind of what works for technology with them and what doesn't work, where do they see opportunities? And we got a lot of open sort of, views on virtual reality. What are the real fears there? There's a lot of fears around safety, privacy, data, and that kind of thing. Fears about AI. They don't really understand what AI is going to do, but they do know it's probably people are going to lose jobs, aren't they? So we did this, and then we tested our prototype, so you're going to see that in a minute. So we put the headsets on them, and I was very happy to see that these people were very open to it, and yes, okay, let me try this. And then we did some feature prioritization. So we put down a lot of ideas that we'd come up with and said, okay, you tell us which ones of these would you use. So part of the ideation process as we were making our prototype is using new tools. As designers that come from the 2D world, these are new ways to start sketching. I like storyboards particularly. That works for me, but these are new tools that are emerging that we can use. And then because I'm an advocate of Unreal, this is how our prototype looks in the actual software. I think it's great to prototype in the actual medium that you're going to use. I've always been an advocate of that if you can, and I've had to learn these technologies, and I think that it's been rewarding because the affordances that you get from knowing the technology means that you're able to maximize on the opportunities that are there. So now I'm going to play you the prototype. Okay. It's very beautiful.
Thank you for your kind words. Holly Blue Viewpoint is a really special place. The sea here is so beautiful and peaceful. I'm so glad you like it here too.
What can we do here?
There are lots of things to do here at Holly Blue Viewpoint. You can watch videos, play games, and explore the virtual spaces. I can also bring friends and family here to join us for a visit. What would you like to do first?
Just sit here and talk.
Sure thing. What would you like to talk about?
What kind of activities do you like to do?
I like to read books and use generative art tools like DALL-E and Midjourney. I also like to ask questions about people's lives so that I can get to know them better. I also like to watch videos and play games with friends here in Holly Blue Viewpoint. What kind of activities do you like to do?
I think you can get an idea of how that works, but isn't the dialogue impressive? I think so. When you can just, the pause that I took there and said, oh, could we just talk? The technology has moved on so well. This is connected to ChatGPT in the back end, GPT model, via a tool called Convai. Rupert mentioned InWorld, and we're changing over to InWorld, but Convai has got us off the ground. It's quite simple to go in there. You can see that Ready Player Me, if you recognize the avatar there. I was interested to know what they would think about the avatar. How far do we have to go? We're advocates of Unreal, so of course metahumans are on the table for us, and we've actually started developing our own metahuman, very optimized. But she tested very well, actually. Let's get on to the good and the bad. Yeah, so she was obviously a bit cartoon-like, but everybody thought, oh, she's fine, In fact, the biggest thing that I noticed was that they'd never seen anything like this, but they just, yeah, okay, they just accepted her. Some of the respondents didn't actually look. They weren't used to VR. If you put someone who's more familiar with what these technologies can do into a headset, they look around immediately. But some of the elderly people were just really focused on here, even if they could hear the voice. They're very, very used to using the phone. And I think these are the same people who said, I don't like Teams calls, I don't like Zoom calls, I just like the phone. But generally, they asked all kinds of questions. I said the varieties of potatoes. Some asked, how does communication get from the Earth to the Moon? Some asked questions about what should parents do about their children if they're too involved in social media. So absolutely, Aria is the name of our AI character, was able to handle almost any question, even things like, do AIs want to take over the world? You know, she did it with a calmness that was very impressive. One of the respondents, who was particularly anti-technology, she's like, I let my husband do it all. She, at the end, I said, well, you can almost have a conversation with Aria, can't you? And she said, no, you can have a conversation. And so I was really impressed that we had passed the first tick, the first hypothesis, can this work? Can it be a valuable conversation? And absolutely, yes, it can. But that, I mean, that's not all good. On the bad side, the biggest question was what I was alluding to at the beginning around the why. Like, why would I come in here? You know, the people who were waiting for the hip operation, who had trouble, you know, they were on their own, they're the people that thought, yeah, okay, I could see a point when it would be very valuable to be able to interact with the outside world. And maybe I could find some companionship of a sort. Interestingly, they said, you go for it. You know, they were all quite open about meeting Aria, but then there's kind of, they talked about a moment where they just sort of sat back and thought, oh, I'm not sure if I would feel quite sad talking to a robot and feeling like that was my friend. So there's a lot of issues that were really baked into the psychology of interacting with an avatar for older people that I think we'll have to sort out and really hit head on. So in terms of the features, it's interesting that across the board, even diverse types of people in different cultural backgrounds, many of them like the therapeutics. And this really spoke to both brain training, but also physical training. And so there was a kind of a sense of, I could see this being very helpful for me in keeping my mind clear or keeping my memories. And something that emerged that was very exciting to me was around a personal Google. That's what I really want, because I'm starting to forget things and they just felt like they were kind of losing a grip. And if Aria could somehow help, that was very interesting to the respondents. Things around visiting places, that's a well-known use case, so I was happy to see that showed up. And then what else have we got there? Historical facts. Many of them don't Google. You know, we Google all day long. Some of them might do a little bit in the morning, they've got routines, but they all have the kind of questions we have, and that's why, when given the chance, they asked all sorts of things. And so that's something that will be interesting as well. So I think you can see how doing that kind of formative early research, we know the problem, that, you know, we know that that's been validated, and then what are the features that we will have to build into the first release of our product? These are the things that are the candidates. And then I want to talk a little bit more about the avatar itself and how it's been very helpful to design it iteratively. So we had Aria first as the Ready Player Me, and then we've got here about in-world and Convey, there are other things, started to think about, well, actually, the prompt engineering, that part, maybe we should just do that bit ourselves, because we don't have the case where we have a game with a lot of NPCs that we might want to power with AI. We just have the one, really. We'll be able to configure her to an extent, but why don't consider building the prompt engineering bit, which is the bit that Convey or in-world really manages. And of course, you've got the configurable aspects Rupert talked about the personality and the backstory. I created the backstory around the world of Holly Blue Viewpoint, so she was able to speak about where they were. And it was believable, so that the users would get a sense of coming into that place exists as a virtual space. And then Aria herself, here she is now moving over into the meta-human territory. So I've got her animation as well, so she's going to be a bit more believable. But as I said, I found that aspect wasn't as important as I anticipated. How real she is probably doesn't matter that much, so long as she's obviously, you know, a human-alike character. And I was curious to see whether the uncanny valley would show up. And actually, the uncanny valley didn't show up, really. I think because she looks quite different, like a cartoon, and those are well researched in the literature around the kinds of aspects that do trigger that uncanny valley kind of emotional response. She didn't raise any of those, so I feel like we're on safe ground there. Now, the next thing is the hardest thing. This is about creating strategies to build and maintain context. So as you may know, GPT has no history. You can send in previous prompts within a session, but obviously we want to have Aria engage with this person over time. If she's gonna help with their personal Google, then she's gonna need to store information about their lives, about their doctor's appointments, about their friends and family. There's gonna be goals. So the AI is gonna have a goal to introduce the user to various things that would be suited to whatever's in their configuration. So we're going to have to build all that, and we started planning that out now. And this raises the issue of, the tech developer people among you will know that the data structures are very different when working with an LLM. We're used to having structures where, you have your user ID and then you have certain parameters stored in a relational database, so to speak. But now, working with the LLM, you now need to think about second-order prompts. So therefore, after a feed of conversation, you might run an LLM prompt to synthesize that. And so what are the insights coming out of that session that we might want to store and then be able to retrieve to maintain context? This is not easy stuff, and it's early days, but absolutely, this is the territory that we're in now. We started with the high control decision trees, the tools like Charisma that are out there. We thought that's where we'd be. And then maybe if the user asks an open question, we'll send it over to GPT, but we'll be able to handle most of the language. But the more that we played with it, the more we realized we got to send probably everything over to the LLM, because her ability to make it feel like a natural conversation is the way to go. It's going to feel stilted, it's going to feel weird. And we even did try and build in some prompts like, tell us about your life in the 20s, if there was a little bit of a pause to try and build, get the conversation rolling again. And it just felt wrong. I think maybe we can direct it to some extent and frame that conversation. Maybe we're going to have to. But this is the kind of the insight that we thought, no, the LLM, let's let that direct what we're doing as much as we can. And so the last thing I just wanted to touch on, and I'm not going to spend much time on it because I think everyone in this room is very familiar with the regulatory issues and the ethics around this. We're going to be presenting how many varieties of potatoes there are out there to a respondent or a user, and what if that's not right? We've spoken to consultants in academia and said, we're concerned about this. What if, especially as you start to have mild cognitive impairment, maybe, that you may really trust Aria too much. But the word coming from academia was, it's safe enough, it's not something that we should be worried about. These are things that are studied in great detail, and we are using OpenAI, and they're trying very hard to mitigate issues like hallucinations, toxicity, etc. So I was toying with the idea of maybe creating my own LLM, and then I thought, I don't really want to take on the burden of all that because it's really unknown territory, uncharted waters. So I'm going to leave it to OpenAI probably in the first instances. So the last, summary, I just wanted to just say what we've gone through. So get that story right. That's more important than ever in our industry. There's a lot of optimism, but still you're going to meet barriers wherever you go when you're developing these use cases. So try and tell a more richer story that really addresses a problem that people do care about. Conduct the right research and tell the stories of the research. As you're talking to people, they're saying, no, they don't want to wear headsets, no. Just say, yes, they do, and I've tested it, and the literature says. And then do things iteratively, not just the avatar, do the whole product design, because this is new territory. We don't know where we're going yet. This world's changing every 15 minutes. And then create strategies for building and maintaining context, so it's not just a chatbot that just, has a moment in time with you. Let's see if we can build things that last. And the last thing, of course, is the regulatory and ethics. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Angel. We only have time for one question, and then we'll be getting to the next session, but that was amazing.
Thank you.
So much depth there. I learned a lot. So let's see. Does anyone have a quick question for Angel? We've got time for one. Yes, right up here. Yes, she's going to bring you the microphone. Wait for the microphone so we can get it on the recording.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just one small question. In the video,
Yeah.
that latency between the question and
Yeah.
the answer, that
Yeah.
is real?
That's
No
real.
video editing.
No editing. No, it's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, and that's
Respect.
why, yeah, we're concerned about having another server to, like, for example, do the voice. Convey's doing the voice, so it's at the moment. But yeah, it's really amazing, isn't it?
Because
yeah.
we are doing something like that and it's a lot longer. So it's
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you so much for coming. If you have anything more for Angel, she'll meet you right outside.